Assalamu alaikum dear students. Our current session is about phonology and the historical development of a language. Well, my dear students, I hope and expect by the end of this session you would be able to understand how every language, including English, develops phonologically through times and what is the significance of the study of phonology in the history of the development of a language. We need to consider certain questions about this. First of all, we need to be clear about what is phonology and what does the phonological development of a language mean. Well, my dear students, roughly speaking, phonology is the study of how sounds are organized and used in natural languages. And when we talk of phonological system, actually the phonological system of a language includes an inventory of sounds and their features and the rules that specify how these sounds interact with each other while producing certain words. So, as an example, what I would say is phonology is the study of different sounds and the way these sounds come together to form speech and words, such as a comparison of per sound as it occurs differently in pop-up. Phonological development of a language takes place through times. Also, you need to understand that this development is not only, vertical, it also takes place in the divergent form as well, horizontally. And as when we focus on the vertical development of the phonological systems of a language, gradually through, from the time of its birth, through the times as a language grows, the stronger it becomes. With that, its pronunciation system becomes clearer, it becomes more fluent, and the intonation also improves. When we talk of English language as an example of that, there are approximately 44 speech sounds used in English. Speech sounds that are used in combination with other sounds thus produce, the totality of oral English language. You also need to be familiar with certain terms such as pitch, which is how high or low a voice is when a certain sound is produced. Because through the development of a language, the pitch and intonation of, certain sounds, it keeps on developing and changing. Another term that you need to know is stress. How low or soft a word is spoken. And what is juncture? Another term. Juncture is actually the pause that, or the connection between words and phrases. One word and the second word and the third word. The kind of pauses that are given that connect these words. Well, my dear students, English has a wide variation in pronunciation, both historically and from dialect to dialect. What do I mean by that? In terms of its development from Old English to the Middle English to the early modern to the modern English, you would see a gradual development phonologically. In terms of sounds, there is a development. But that is not the only direction of development. There is a horizontal development as well. From one dialect to the other, from one variety of English to the other, there has been a lot of variety. In general, however, the regional dialects of English share a lot of similarities. Largely, they are similar. However, they are not identical in their phonological systems. How they are different? Among other things, most dialects have vowel reduction in unstressed syllables and a complex set of phonological features that distinguish stops, affricates, and fricatives. So, this is how one dialect differs from the other dialect, in the production of certain sounds. Well, if we look at the tradition of the study of phonology, we would realize that most of times when it comes to English, the analysis focuses on, or it uses as a reference point, the standard varieties of English. So, either British RP variety, the standard variety, or general American English as a standard variety, or Australian English, or for that purposes, New Zealand English would be used as a standard for that, and generally dialects would not be considered for that purpose. However, there are certain dialects in English that have, through the times phonologically developed in such a way that they have formed their own standardized, accents, particularly, regional dialects from one region to the other, because the US that consists of 50 states, every region would have a different cultural and social background, and people would have different ancestries. So a lot of influences would come from their past and from their histories. The result would be that they would have their own systems of phonological development, and they would be particular for that particular region. Overall, what I would say is the pronunciation system of English has undergone many changes through the history. If we compare and contrast, for that matter, the Old English pronunciation with the Middle English pronunciation to the modern English pronunciation, we can see how there has been a lot of development. And in fact, because English orthography has not been able to keep pace with the changes in the pronunciation, since the Middle English period, former pronunciations of most of these words, now are, they are reflected in the spellings that are used. I would give the example of the English consonant system that has been relatively stable over time, although a number of significant changes have occurred in that as well. When we come to the vowels, however, there you would notice that there has been a lot of change, especially, through the Middle English times. So coming to the vowels, the splitting of voiced and voiceless allophones of fricatives into separate phonemes has taken place. So for the two different phonemes that are represented with this th, th and the, three and there, this th and the difference that did not exist earlier, we can notice it through the, phonological development. There have also been changes in consonant clusters, mostly reductions, for instance, those that produce the usual modern pronunciations of these three combinations. So, what I want to help you understand is that though there are slighter changes in terms of consonants, but there are certain sounds, consonant sounds individually, or certain clusters like these that over the times, they have developed, they have taken different forms and shapes. When we compare this development in consonants with the development in vowels, the development in vowels is far more complex. The Great Vowel Shift. As students of the history of English language, this is something that you would come across again and again. This Great Vowel Shift that took place somewhere around the 14th century, late 14th century, is one of the major changes in the overall phonological system of English language, and particularly, the vowels. It is not possible to point out all the impact of this vowel shift. I would just point out a couple of examples. So, for example, through this E and U sounds in the words like price, I sound, and mouth, they became diphthongized. So, if I take you back to Shakespeare's times, in Shakespeare times, three words: food, good, and blood. Notice the vowel sound. Food, oo sound. Good, o sound. Blood, a sound. Oo, a sound. All these three sounds, they were, produced in the same way. All had this oo sound. So it was like food, good, and blued. This is how they would be pronounced in Shakespeare's times. But over the time, what has happened? There is a change in the vowels, and food remains the same, but good and blood. This blood is now this sound, a sound, and good is this oo sound. This is the change in the vowels that has occurred. In other cases, words that were formerly distinct have come to be pronounced the same. Examples of such mergers include meat and meat, pain and pain, or toe and toe. So, overall, what I just want you to understand is that phonological development of a language is one of the measures of, measuring, or this is one of the yardsticks of measuring the development of a language and the changes that take place in language. And in this case, English is not an exception. To understand the developments in English language, we need to understand the phonological changes that have occurred through the times and space.